Okay, so RDS blue-green deployment, right? So how many of you have used RDS before? Raise of hands. Yeah, so RDS is basically, let's say I want to make any schema changes or updates to your RDS database, right? So how will I do it, right? What are the options I have? So I have two major options. One is in-place deployment, right? So I make the change, the production database is there, I make the change in-place deployment change, right? That's mostly people do that. Again, in production, you might not know what might happen, but for small schema changes, you might want to do in-place deployment. There is also the other option, which is doing a blue-green deployment yourself, which is you have two RDS databases, right? One is a blue database, which is a prod database. There's a green database, which is your uh, staging database, and then you get all of your database details into your staging one, green one, and then once you have made the necessary schema changes and you're satisfied that this is good to go to production, then you make the routing change from your blue database to your green database, right? So that's again what you have to do at your end, which is have two databases, manage both of database. There might be some cutover because you have to change the routing thing, right? So that is what you do, right? So there are two options that you have, right? Now, so obviously there's something that AWS had to provide here, which was blue-green deployment, so right? So this is now AWS is managing the blue-green deployment for you, right? So you don't have to do two databases, manage the transfer of them, changing them, right? So it's giving you the blue-green databases. There's a simple switchover that happens, right? So let's say I have a blue database, right? So when you create a database, right, you have a console where you create a database. There you'll be seeing an option of having a blue-green database, right? So I'll select a blue database, right? And then when I want to make a switchover, I'll switch to the green database, right? So if you look through here, you're seeing a blue-green database, DB identifier, and then the switchover is where you see blue instances and green instances, right? So it's easier to switch over from a blue instance to green instance, and this happens within seconds, right? So you're not really doing a cutover in a sense, and also AWS is managing these things for you, right? So it's easier for you to use things, right? So it's available with Amazon Aurora with MySQL capability. RDS is also available. MariaDB is available. It's in general availability, right? Soon other SQLs will also have this functionality, right? Okay. So another major change in the Elastic disaster recovery, right? So essentially, what is a disaster recovery, right? You may ask. So disaster recovery is managing for failures, right? So let's say there is a failure in a system, right? I have two instances. I have on AWS and on premise, right? So let's say there is a failure in a particular instance, right? So how do I manage for that, right? So I have disaster recovery options for managing it, right? So the map diagram that you see will go through each aspect of it, right? But essentially, the Elastic disaster recovery helps you manage your recovery in case of a failure, and it is set up in a way that it has two applications. So one is on premise and one is on AWS. Here you are getting both of them on AWS, but in a way that it helps you with the disaster recovery, right? So automated in AWS failover provides a simplified and expedited experience to fail. So here again, as I mentioned, failover happens, right? So we'll go over this. There's a source AWS region, there's a recovery AWS region, right? So you have an EC2 instance, right, which is your source instance. You use the disaster recovery to get a source in another region, right? So you use that to do the recovery. Then from that server, you get your instance back, right? So when you copy EC2 instance to another instance, you have to recover that, and so you use that EC2 from EC2 instance, you get a source, and from that source you have to recover to that instance. So that's what happens here. Start failover process, you have to failover to that DRS, then you recover the instance. Then after the instance is recovered, you're routing that traffic to that instance. Failover is complete, right? Now let's say there's a failback, right? So there's something that doesn't work. So you have to initiate a recovery. For that you create another source, right? From that source you have to create a recovery instance, and from that instance you have to create an EC2 instance, which is what is then routed back to, right? So again your routing is complete, failback is complete, and then you start with the cleanup process, right? So with cleanup you have to delete these 4 things, and you just have these 2 things left, right? So that's your cleanup complete. So this is the entire mind map of how you plan for an disaster recovery, failover and failback, right? So failover is you have the failover to another instance in another region, and then failback is, let's say it doesn't work out, then you have to go back to your existing region, right? So that's how you do the entire setup. Again, elastic disaster recovery service itself is a big service in itself, and this is the automated failback option that they have provided, which is you can fail back to the original region again, right? So that is the essentially what they have provided. I've explained you both the things, which is failover service itself and the failback thing also, right? Failback is the main thing that they have launched, right? Okay, so again, we'll not be moving in depth about each of the things that are launched here, right? We just get a high level of what each thing is doing, right? So here AWS backup new features that are launched, right? So S3 AWS backups are provided for S3, right? So many of you are using S3, right? So backups is a good option you have. Then there is support for VMware workloads, right? So again, many of them are mentioned as preview, and those are mentioned as GA, general availability, right? Protect and restore your CloudFormation stacks. So again, protect and restore your CloudFormation stacks is an important thing, because let's say I have a CloudFormation stack, right? And I have to protect that stack because let's say someone deletes it, right? Accidentally, also someone deletes it. Right? So how do I protect it, put a backup of it, and restore it when needed, right? So that's also there. Support for Amazon Redshift. So as Nilesh Bhai mentioned, data analytics is a big takeaway in this reInvent conference, right? So 2022 data analytics was the big takeaway. So lots of things have been announced in the data analytics space. We'll cover them later on, but Redshift has a big importance in this reInvent, right? And delegation of organization. Okay, so again, organization level access, right? We'll not cover everything in depth. We just give you an overview of what is there. You can go on and explore each of this service. We'll also have this PPT available to you, right? Okay. So Amazon CloudWatch Internet Monitor, right? So how many of you have used CloudWatch? CloudWatch users? Okay. Lots of you have used, right? So let's say there is a performance issue, right? So some of your clients you have used, like let's say I have an application, I've given it to a client, the client is using my application, he sees internet issues, performance issues with the application, right? So I go on my CloudWatch, I look at my CloudWatch and I see there's nothing, right? So how do I identify performance issues at my client's place, right? How do I account for the changes or the issues that the client is facing, right? So CloudWatch Internet Monitor is a feature within the CloudWatch service itself, which helps you provides you the visibility into your performance issues that are happening at your client's place, right? So how an internet issue might impact the performance. So there's an internet issue at a client's place, right? So that might impact your performance and availability of your applications, right? So the CloudWatch Internet Monitor is a feature that helps you negate that, right? So you can go into the CloudWatch. There is a preview mode option available in that for Internet Monitor, and then you can go into that Internet Monitor itself and then see that this is my application. How is it performing, right? So is there any lag in it, right? If there is, then the lag has to be because of internet issues. Some of the issues might also be there, but this is the background on how things happen with the Internet Monitor, right? Again, this is also a vast service in itself. Like CloudWatch is also a vast service in itself. There's lots of things in it: logging, monitoring, tracing, right? So those are a lot of things. And Internet Monitor also gives you support for a lot of things. There is not much time to go into each aspect of it, right? So, but again, the high level overview of it is it gives you performance or internet related issues within your client system. It gives you a background on that, and then you can explore more on it, right? Okay, so Amazon CloudWatch log data protection, right? So data protection again is a key area that AWS has invested in this particular reInvent, right? So we see a lot of data masking related things that AWS has done in this space. So one of them is capabilities for that match pattern matching and machine learning capabilities to detect and protect your sensitive log related data in transit, right? So you see your logs, sensitive data is there in the logs. How do you mask it, right? So this is an usage or maybe just a feature to mask your data, protect your sensitive data, so it doesn't go out to multiple people who are not authorized to use it, right? So that's your log data protection. There'll also be a lot of data protection services or features within the data analytics space. Here, it's more to do with people who want to, who are not authorized, can access some sensitive data. You want to protect the data. You have this capability inbuilt, and it is general availability, so it is available for you to use in your CloudWatch logs, right? Okay, so I think this is probably a very important announcement, or maybe a feature within the S3 space itself, S3 service itself, right? Lots of people have been using S3, right? S3 people. So what multi-region access allows you to do is have multiple. So I want an S3, my S3 bucket to be accessible across multiple regions, right? Now you're getting it regional based, right? So you're getting S3 for USTs. So when you see an S3 location or your endpoint, right, it is a particular region specific, AZ specific, right? UST is one, AP South one, right? Those are specific regions. Now with this multi-region access, you can list your bucket to be available in multiple regions. So let's say I have a bucket, I put that bucket as given multi-region access to that particular bucket, but for one region you can have only one bucket to be multi-region access. So let's say I have 3 buckets, they are in 3 different regions. I combine them, put them in, give them one multi-region access, right? So then now I have one multi-region access which can access my 3 buckets in 3 different regions, right? So this is what's different about it. You also get a dynamic namespace for this, right? So you cannot use your previous namespaces, right? So your previous namespace could be some bucket name, then your region, and then AWS, Amazon AWS.com, right? So then you cannot use that. You have to get a new default namespace because it is giving you a multi-region access, right? So will automatically route all the traffic. So again, this is a benefit of having a multi-region access. It will automatically route all your traffic to the closest bucket. 3 buckets, 3 different regions. I'm operating from AP South, it will route to that particular bucket, right? Failover controls let you shift. Okay, so let's say there is a failure, right? So why do we generally use multi-region, right? Because of failover issues, right? So if there is an AZ failure, if there is a failure within a particular region, very less chances of happening. But again, if it happens, I don't want to be down with it, right? So I have a multi-region access point, multiple buckets in multiple regions. Failure happens, lets you shift to S3 data access request, traffic routed, right, to an alternate region within minutes and test. And so yeah, you get high availability built in for your business continuity with this multi-region access point, right? So if you see them, it's not pretty clear, but again, if editing the routing status and you are completing it failover, so here you are making this go to from one region to multi-region access, right? Again, it is in general availability, right? So you can try and use this service. Okay, so this is the last service that we're going to talk about, or feature that we're going to discuss within the DevOps space, right? So this is your Route 53 zonal shift, right? So like Route 53, many of you are using Route 53, right? That's Route 53 users. Okay. So Route 53 is basically something that you use to map your domains, right? So I have an EC2 instance, I have that domain mapping to your EC2 instance, I use Route 52 to map that, right? And then internally applications also I can map with hosted zones and all, public, private hosted zones for managing that, right? So so this capability is built into your ELBs, right? So elastic load balancers, right? So what it helps you achieve is a temporary fix, right? So let's say there is an AZ that's not working in a proper manner, right? Again, you're shifting, it's also a recovery oriented strategy. So you shift away from that AZ to other healthy AZs, right? So you shift away using this capability, and it helps you keep a resilient application, right? So availability is obtained with this, right? So you have 3 different like application in 3 different AZs, right? Let's say using this zonal shift within that ELB, I can shift an AZ which is unhealthy to another AZ, right? So again, this is a temporary fix. So you fix it, you shift it, shift your workload from particular AZ to another AZ. The healthy AZ will have a lot of load for that duration, right? But till the time that you fix the AZ, unhealthy thing you have to fix, right? And then again you can shift back. So it's recovery-oriented strategy that you're using. It's called zonal shift. It is available within the ELB itself, and it's in preview mode, right? So you can sign up, preview it, right? Yeah, I think those are the 4 or 5 services and key launches within that each service that we have discussed within the DevOps space. I know the focus was on recovery, resiliency, availability, right? Those are the key focus areas. I think the takeaway within the DevOps space for me was the blue-green deployment, right? So RDS blue-green deployment is a very big takeaway. If you look at it, if you have your databases, you want their databases to be available all the time, and you want that blue-green deployment automated by AWS, then that's a good. And Service Connect is also a good service because you get all of the benefits of all the other 3 things that I mentioned, right? So those were the 2. I know other were also announced, but those are the key for me, right? Yeah. Okay. Nilesh bhai.